One of the great things about campaigning is you travel around, you meet lots of people. And this week, I've met a lot of brave people. I was at a meeting of the Milwaukee Police Department last night. They were talking about public safety in the community, and I thought to myself, these are really brave officers keeping our community safe. And earlier this week, I was at an event where Mandela Barnes was speaking, our lieutenant governor, and his security detail swooped in. And I thought, wow, these people will take a bullet for Mandela. These are really brave people. But I got to tell you, you have it beat, because you are Waukesha County Democrats. And you are the bravest people. I'm not pandering, am I? Not too much. So I'm Ed Fallone. I'm a candidate for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I like to say that the life of the law is experience. Okay? I didn't originate that. That's a quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes, a former Supreme Court justice. But the life of the law is experience. And what he meant when he said that is that our law and our legal institutions reflect the wisdom and the shared knowledge of our lifetime in our society. What we learn in our communities and in our lives gets reflected in the laws that we make and how we structure our institutions. Now, conservative judges do it differently. Conservative judges like to come up with some abstract theory. Like, what does the word liberty mean? Well, Plato thought this. And then they take this abstract idea of liberty and they try to superimpose it on reality. And it doesn't fit. Because the law is actually bottom up. It's made from experience. I absolutely believe that. So I want to start by telling you about my life experience and how that influences me and how it influences my view of the law. Okay? We'll start with my parents. Now I have to warn you, the story of how my parents met is adorable. So if you react adversely to cute stories, this is a trigger warning. My father was a high school English teacher. His whole life, most of his career, he was a union member of the teachers union. But before he graduated from Teachers College, that's what it was called back then, he went on a college trip to Mexico City. And while he was there with a couple other U.S. friends, one of his friends said, "Hey, I heard about this party. You want to go?" And my father said, "Well, I don't know." And his friend said, "Well, there'll be a lot of Mexican girls there, and they'll be dancing." My father said, "Okay, I'm game." But his friend said, "I can't go with you. I'll have to give you directions." And my father, to the day he died, never spoke a word of Spanish. But somehow or other, he followed these directions on his own through Mexico City, huge city. Even then, we're talking about 1960. He took streetcar, bus, walked, navigated his way to this strange neighborhood, and got to the door of the party. And of course, you know, his friend never showed up. So my father's all alone, doesn't speak a word of Spanish. Somehow, bravely, he knocks on the door. My mother opened the door. It was her birthday party. And she took pity on this American who shows up at her house in Mexico City and talked to him. Fortunately, she knew English. And at the end of the night, they were smitten with each other. He returned to the United States. They corresponded through letters. It's nice to have an audience old enough to know what letters are. And a year later, he returned to Mexico and proposed. So my mother was a Mexican immigrant who came back to the United States when she married my father. They raised 4 children in the state of Maryland. Now, we were a working class family. You know, my father was a public school teacher, and certainly the early part of his career when I was young, we didn't have a lot of money. It was a rare event to go out to dinner anywhere where you actually got to sit down when you ate. I thought going out to a restaurant meant sitting in the car. Takeout. That's why there always French fries were in the seats of our cars. But we were a working class family. We didn't have a lot of extra money. And certainly the college savings plan in my family growing up was you were going to work during the school year and borrow the rest of the tuition, and you keep your fingers crossed that it would work out. Well, my older brother Jim, who's 2 years older than me, it didn't work out for him. After 2 years, he had to drop out of college. And that was just about the time I was applying for college. And I knew if I was going to be able to go to college and maybe go on to law school, I would need to win a merit scholarship. That was it. That was my college savings plan. And fortunately, I worked hard, and I earned a college scholarship on merit that paid for full tuition for my undergrad and most of the tuition of my law school at one of the top law schools in the country. And so I understand the importance of education because I know what it did for me. I graduated from law school. I went to work at a major national law firm representing large corporations in multi-million-dollar securities fraud lawsuits and huge white-collar crime investigations. And after a few years, I came to a conclusion. I didn't want to work for large corporations. But what I wanted to do was give back and help other people get the benefit of the education that had helped me so much. So I left the law firm and I became a faculty member at Marquette University Law School. And for the last 25 years, I've been teaching constitutional law, criminal law, corporate law, immigration law to the next generation of lawyers. And I'm proud to say that many of my former students are now elected officials, they're sitting judges, they're prosecutors, they're defense lawyers, they're all over the state. So these are the values that led me to a teaching career, but I never forgot where I came from, and I've always been giving back to my community. So even as a full-time law professor, I've been a leader in the nonprofit sector in southeastern Wisconsin. So I led an organization, the Latino Community Center, where we provided after-school programs for kids so they wouldn't be on the streets. This was in a neighborhood in the south side of Milwaukee that had the highest teen dropout rate, the highest teen pregnancy rate, and the highest degree of gang activity in the city of Milwaukee. And the reason that the kids were having such trouble is they were unsupervised. They'd get out of school, 3 o'clock, both parents were working, full-time jobs, or one parent was incarcerated, the other parent was on their own, and the kids were on the street getting into trouble. So under my leadership, we bought a building, we had after-school tutors, a computer lab, hot meal for the kids. They were safe until their parents could come and pick them up at 7 p.m. And you know what? They stayed out of the criminal justice system and the crime rate went down. I'm proud to say that I led 2 organizations that provided low-cost lawyers to working families. Because I know what it's like to grow up in a family where you don't have a lot of extra income. And I know from being a lawyer that sometimes legal problems arise out of the blue. Just like an unexpected health care bill, you can have an unexpected divorce or family law issue, you can be in a car accident, someone sues you. One organization I led was called Central Legal, still in existence, still serving the public. It provides low-cost lawyers to people in family law situations. We had a client, a woman, who was married, her husband left her, just took off, disappeared. She stayed married to him for years because at the end of every month, she never had $500 left over to hire a divorce lawyer. And she didn't want to go to court on her own. She didn't feel she could do it. So the easiest thing for her to do was simply stay married. The guy was gone. She was able to come to Central Legal. We were able to give her an affordable lawyer. She got a divorce and she could move on with her life. Those were the kind of people we helped there. I also helped lead an organization, the Catholic Charities Immigration Legal Services, which still to this day represents immigrants. Immigrant families that have a claim to stay in the U.S. because they're fleeing persecution abroad. If they're returned to their home country, they could face violence. Or women who are afraid to be returned home to their home country because there's an abusive spouse waiting for them. And they had legal claims to stay in the U.S. if only they could make those claims. And what do we know? We know if they are not represented by lawyers, a very high percentage of those cases lose. If they are represented by lawyers, a very high percentage of those cases win. And we're able to provide low-cost lawyers to those immigrant families so they could stay in the United States. So I've never forgotten that I grew up in a working family and that people in those situations sometimes are left out of the justice system, that the justice system is not accessible. And so I've been trying my whole career to make the system better by educating future lawyers, future leaders, and by working in the nonprofit sector. And now I'm running for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Now let me tell you, when it comes to electing our Supreme Court justices, we're doing it the wrong way. Let me repeat that. We're doing it the wrong way. Every time there's a Supreme Court election, we get it told. I'm not sure who's telling us, but we hear it. The only people who are qualified to be candidates for the state Supreme Court are former prosecutors or sitting judges. That's it. And we don't know. Now, most of the people who tell us that happen to be themselves former prosecutors or sitting judges, right? They want us to think that that's the main qualification to be on our state's highest court. And when we listen to them, and we say, okay, I guess we'll vote for who you tell us to vote for, you know what we're doing? We're giving our vote away. The Wisconsin Constitution gives all of us the right to vote for our judges, including the state Supreme Court. And we just give it away and vote for whoever we're told to vote for. And you know what I think we should do? I think this election we should flip the script. I think first we should decide who's the candidate who has the values, the principles that I want to see represented on our state's highest court. A perspective that's not currently there. Figure out who that candidate is and vote for that candidate. And that, I think, will lead you to vote for me. I'm a constitutional law professor. I'm very proud to have national advocacy groups and national media contact me to ask me about my opinion on constitutional issues. You know, our state Supreme Court does not just decide criminal law cases. It decides important cases of equal rights, of gerrymandered districts, rights affecting the environment, affecting free speech. Sitting as a judge deciding criminal trials is not going to prepare you to decide those cases. I come to the court with all of those experiences.